Salt versus sugar, which is worse for your blood pressure? You've been told for years to cut back on salt, but what if sugar is doing even more damage and no one's talking about it? High blood pressure doesn't just come from the salt shaker. It can also be hiding in your morning cereal, flavored yogurt, or that healthy granola bar. While salt has long been labeled the villain of hypertension, sugar is quietly sneaking under the radar, triggering inflammation, damaging your arteries, and setting your blood pressure up to rise. So which one is worse? In this video, we'll break it down, how salt and sugar each affect your blood pressure differently, what the latest research reveals about their long-term health impact, and how to make smart swaps without giving up flavor. Because managing your blood pressure isn't just about cutting back, it's about knowing what to cut, why, and how to do it without feeling restricted. Let's settle the debate, salt versus sugar, once and for all. How salt affects blood pressure. Salt has long been the poster child for high blood pressure, and for good reason. While the human body does need sodium to function, too much salt creates serious pressure, literally. Let's unpack how that happens. Salt and water retention. The pressure rises. When you eat salt, your body holds on to water to keep your blood sodium levels balanced. This extra water increases your blood volume, forces your heart to pump harder, raises the pressure on your artery walls. Think of your blood vessels like a garden hose. More fluid inside the same space equals higher pressure. Over time, this chronic pressure can damage the lining of your arteries, stiffen them, and eventually lead to hypertension, heart disease, and stroke. How much is too much? According to the American Heart Association, AHA, the recommended daily sodium limit is 1,500 milligrams, but the average adult consumes 3,400 milligrams, more than double. And most of that salt doesn't come from the shaker. It's hidden in processed and packaged foods like breads, canned soups, sauces and salad dressings, deli meats and fast food. So even if you're not adding extra salt at the table, you may already be overloading your system. Scientific proof: salt raises blood pressure. A groundbreaking study called the InterSalt study, involving over 10,000 people from 32 countries, showed a direct correlation between higher salt intake and increased blood pressure. And here's the clincher. When people reduce salt intake, their blood pressure drops, often within days. A modest sodium reduction, about 1,000 milligrams per day, can lower systolic blood pressure by 5 millimeters of mercury in hypertensives. In salt-sensitive individuals, the drop is even more dramatic. Some people are more salt-sensitive than others, especially older adults, African Americans, people with kidney disease, people with existing hypertension. For them, even moderate salt can spike blood pressure significantly. Salt isn't evil, but it's easy to overdo. Sodium isn't bad. Your body needs it for muscle contraction, nerve transmission, fluid balance. But in the modern diet, it's everywhere, and in quantities our bodies were never meant to handle. Salt raises blood pressure through water retention and vascular resistance. Cutting back, even slightly, can create noticeable improvements, especially for salt-sensitive individuals. But is salt really the worst offender? Let's now take a look at sugar, the sweet danger that's often overlooked when it comes to your blood pressure. How sugar affects blood pressure. Salt gets all the blame when it comes to high blood pressure. But sugar is the silent saboteur that's been flying under the radar for decades. It's not just about cavities or weight gain. Sugar, especially in excess, can disrupt your entire cardiovascular system. And yes, it can raise your blood pressure. Let's dive into science. Sugar, insulin, and blood vessel dysfunction. When you consume sugar, especially refined sugars or fructose, commonly found in sodas, juices, and processed snacks, your body releases insulin to help manage blood glucose. Over time, frequent sugar spikes lead to insulin resistance, a condition where your cells stop responding effectively to insulin. This creates a chain reaction. Blood sugar stays high, inflammation increases. The kidneys retain more sodium. Blood vessels constrict and stiffen. Result: increased blood pressure. In fact, high sugar intake has been linked to endothelial dysfunction, impaired relaxation of blood vessels, oxidative stress, damage to cells and arteries. increased sympathetic nervous system activity, leading to vasoconstriction, tightening of blood vessels. Sugary drinks, the worst offenders. If there's one sugar source to cut first, it's sweetened beverages. A study published in the journal Circulation found that people who consume just one sugary drink per day had a 26% higher risk of developing high blood pressure compared to those who didn't. And here's the shocking part. A single can of soda can contain 35 to 40 grams of sugar. That's 8 to 10 teaspoons in one serving. What the research says. A 2014 study published in Open Heart concluded that added sugar may be more strongly and directly associated with hypertension than sodium. Another analysis in BMJ found that cutting sugar, particularly fructose, resulted in significant reductions in both systolic and diastolic blood pressure in as little as 2 weeks. Researchers even suggest that reducing sugar intake can have an effect equal to or greater than reducing sodium when it comes to lowering BP. Sugar is in everything. Like salt, sugar is often hidden in healthy foods. Yogurt, granola, salad dressings, whole grain breads, flavored nut butters, plant-based milks, even items labeled organic, low-fat, or gluten-free may be loaded with added sugars. Sugar increases blood pressure through metabolic disruption, insulin resistance, and vascular damage. Its effects may be slower and less noticeable than salts, but they are deeply damaging and long-lasting. Now that you understand how both salt and sugar harm your cardiovascular system, it's time to face the big question. Which one is actually worse for your blood pressure? Let's dive into the head-to-head showdown in the next section. Salt versus sugar, which is worse for your blood pressure? It's the million-dollar question. If you had to pick just one to cut back on, salt or sugar, which should it be for your blood pressure? Let's break it down based on mechanism, impact, scientific findings, and real-life behavior. The case against salt. Salt's effect on blood pressure is direct and well understood. Increases blood volume, raises pressure inside arteries, immediate BP elevation in salt-sensitive individuals. Salt's impact is also dose-dependent. The more you consume, the higher your risk. Short-term effects, fast and measurable. Most impactful in older adults or those with pre-existing hypertension. Easy to manage by cooking at home and avoiding processed food. But salt is also essential for survival. You need sodium for nerve function, muscle contraction, and fluid balance. The problem isn't salt itself, it's the excess from processed foods. The case against sugar. Sugar's effect on blood pressure is less immediate, but potentially more dangerous over time. Unlike salt, sugar increases insulin resistance, raises triglycerides, promotes fat storage, especially around the belly, increases inflammation and oxidative stress, impairs nitric oxide, a compound that keeps arteries relaxed. Most notably, sugar contributes to metabolic syndrome, a cluster of conditions, high blood pressure, high blood sugar, abdominal obesity, that dramatically increase cardiovascular risk. Long-term effects, systemic damage over years, contributes to weight gain, which indirectly worsens BP, hidden in many health foods and harder to track. What the studies say. Several high-quality studies have attempted to answer this question. Open Heart Journal, 2014. Sugar may be more strongly and directly associated with hypertension than sodium. British Medical Journal, 2015. Reducing added sugars led to significant blood pressure drops, independent of weight loss or salt intake. Framingham Heart Study found that people who consumed more sugary drinks had higher systolic and diastolic pressures, even after adjusting for salt intake. On the flip side, reducing salt is still crucial, especially for individuals with kidney issues, heart failure, high baseline sodium intake. But when it comes to population-wide impact, many experts now believe that sugar may be the bigger threat to long-term cardiovascular health, including hypertension. Behavioral impact, what people actually overconsume. Let's be honest, most people aren't salting everything excessively, but they are. Drinking soda, eating sweetened cereal, snacking on cookies, cakes, and flavored yogurts, pouring sugar into coffee or tea daily, And because sugar is often marketed as healthy when it's organic, low fat, or natural, people consume far more than they realize. So which is worse? If your blood pressure is already high and you're salt sensitive, salt might be the immediate issue. But if you're overweight, insulin resistant, or pre-diabetic, sugar could be the long-term killer. The reality? Both are problematic and often found together in ultra-processed foods. For real blood pressure control, it's not about choosing one to blame, it's about reducing both intentionally. Next, let's look at where the real danger lies. Ultra-processed foods loaded with both salt and sugar. The real problem: processed foods are the enemy. Here's the truth no one wants to hear. Salt and sugar aren't the root problem. The real enemy is the modern processed food industry that sneaks excessive amounts of both into nearly everything we eat. Let's break it down. Where salt and sugar hide together. Ultra-processed foods, think packaged snacks, frozen meals, fast food and sauces, are where salt and sugar come together in dangerous combinations. Examples include flavored cereals, ketchup and BBQ sauce, packaged breads, canned soups, energy bars, salad dressings, instant noodles, plant-based health snacks. These products are designed to light up your brain's reward system while being cheap, shelf-stable, and hyper-palatable. And while you think you're just having a light snack, you're often consuming half your daily sodium and added sugar intake in one sitting. The addictive nature of salt-sugar-fat combos. Processed foods are scientifically engineered to trigger dopamine release, the brain's pleasure chemical. That means you crave more, you eat more than you need. You become less sensitive to natural flavors. This overstimulation can lead to overeating, weight gain, insulin resistance, and, you guessed it, elevated blood pressure. What the research says. A 2019 study in The Lancet found that diets high in processed foods are the leading dietary cause of death globally, mostly through cardiovascular disease, stroke, hypertension-related complications. These foods contain not only excess salt and sugar, but also preservatives, trans fats, artificial additives, low-quality, low-fiber carbohydrates, all of which fuel chronic inflammation and damage the blood vessels. Even healthy packaged foods can mislead. Food labeled as low-fat often contains added sugar. Low sodium often compensates with extra sweeteners. Organic or vegan doesn't mean it's free from added sugars or salt. That's why simply reading labels isn't enough. You have to understand what's hiding inside. So what's the solution? It's not about cutting everything out. It's about cutting back on what's processed and leaning into real, whole foods. The more your diet consists of whole grains, fresh vegetables, legumes, fruits, herbs, and spices, the less salt and sugar you'll need to make food taste good, because real food has real flavor. Salt and sugar by themselves aren't evil, they're just too easy to overconsume in today's processed food landscape. The real battle isn't between salt and sugar, it's between real food and fake food. Next, let's talk about how you can reduce both without giving up taste. How salt and sugar affect your blood pressure together. What happens when salt and sugar aren't just consumed separately, but together in the same meal? Welcome to the modern diet, where ultra-processed foods are engineered to be addictive, combining salt, sugar, and fat in ways that overstimulate your brain and quietly overload your cardiovascular system. The deadliest combo in the modern diet. Think about these common meals. A fast food burger, high in salt, with soda, loaded with sugar. A muffin, refined sugar and carbs, with cheese, sodium dense. Instant noodles or frozen dinners with sweet sauces. These meals do more than just taste good. They overwhelm your system on multiple fronts. Salt pulls in water and increases blood volume. Sugar increases insulin and triggers inflammation. Together, they create a metabolic storm, higher blood pressure, stiffer arteries, and long-term cardiovascular damage. In fact, several studies now show that people consuming high levels of both salt and sugar are at a much higher risk of hypertension, obesity, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and stroke, Why you crave the combo. The salt-sugar combo activates the brain's reward system, releases a surge of dopamine, makes you crave more even when you're full. And the more often you eat these hyperpalatable foods, the more your natural hunger signals become distorted, making it harder to control portions and make healthy choices. How to break the cycle? Start with awareness, read ingredients, and recognize foods with both salt and sugar. Swap out one hyper-processed meal per day with a whole food-based alternative. Drink water before and during meals. It helps reduce sodium impact. Add fiber and protein. They help stabilize blood sugar and control appetite. Avoid eating while distracted. You'll consume less without even noticing. Salt and sugar are each harmful in excess, but when combined, they're even worse. This lethal duo, found in most packaged and restaurant foods, drives up blood pressure by attacking the body from multiple angles. To protect your heart and health, the smartest move isn't just reducing one, it's becoming intentional about both. How to cut back without feeling deprived. Let's be honest, the idea of cutting out both salt and sugar can feel overwhelming. Nobody wants bland meals or sugarless snacks that taste like cardboard. The good news, you don't have to give up flavor, you just need to upgrade your ingredients and strategy. Here's how to reduce your salt and sugar intake without sacrificing satisfaction. 1. Embrace herbs, spices, and acids. Salt isn't the only way to make food taste amazing. Use flavor boosters like garlic and onion, fresh or powder, fresh herbs, basil, parsley, cilantro, spices, paprika, cumin, turmeric, chili flakes, citrus juice and zest, lemon, lime, vinegars, apple cider, balsamic, rice vinegar. These ingredients activate your taste buds and allow you to use less salt without noticing. 2. Reset your sweet tooth. The more sugar you eat, the more you crave it. But here's the twist. Your taste buds reset in as little as 2 weeks when you cut back. Start small. Reduce sugar in your coffee or tea gradually. Choose unsweetened plant-based milks and yogurts. Use cinnamon, vanilla, or nutmeg to add natural flavor. Add mashed banana or dates to oatmeal instead of sugar. Natural sweetness from whole fruits will become much more satisfying once you retrain your palate. 3. Be a label detective. Learn to spot hidden salt and sugar by scanning food labels. Look out for sodium content over 300 milliliters per serving, sugar content over 8 to 10 grams per serving, sneaky names for sugar like fructose, cane syrup, agave, or maltodextrin. Remember, low fat doesn't mean low sugar. Natural doesn't mean heart healthy. 4. Cook at home. It's your superpower. Cooking from scratch gives you complete control over what goes into your meals. Simple swaps that make a big difference. Use no salt added canned beans or rinse regular ones. Make your own salad dressings with olive oil, lemon, and mustard. Roast vegetables with herbs and olive oil instead of using pre-made sauces. Use nutritional yeast for a cheesy, salty flavor without the sodium. Even cooking 3 meals a week at home can dramatically reduce your salt and sugar intake. 5. Make it a lifestyle, not a crash fix. The goal isn't perfection, it's progress. Focus on building habits you can actually maintain, such as drinking water instead of soda, having fruit for dessert, limiting takeout to once a week, snacking on nuts or hummus instead of chips and cookies. You don't need a boring or restrictive diet to protect your blood pressure. By making smart flavor swaps, reading labels, and preparing more meals at home, you can slash your salt and sugar intake without feeling like you're missing out. Now let's wrap up everything we've learned and deliver the final verdict. Conclusion: salt versus sugar, who wins or loses? So we've compared, contrasted, and dug deep into the salty and the sweet sides of the blood pressure debate. Now it's time to answer the question, which is worse, salt or sugar, for your blood pressure? Let's recap what we know. Salt, the fast-acting pressure riser. Salt increases blood volume and pressure by causing your body to retain water. It's especially dangerous for people who are salt-sensitive older. Dealing with kidney disease or pre-existing hypertension, excess salt can lead to higher systolic and diastolic pressure, arterial stiffness, fluid overload. But salt's effects are usually reversible quickly, and small reductions can lead to noticeable improvements. Sugar, the silent, long-term saboteur. Sugar's impact isn't always immediate, but it's profound and insidious. Excessive sugar, particularly from processed carbs and sugary drinks, contributes to insulin resistance, chronic inflammation, arterial damage, metabolic syndrome, and weight gain. It disrupts nitric oxide production and impairs the flexibility of your blood vessels, slowly raising your blood pressure over time. And unlike salt, sugar is more addictive, often hiding in foods you assume are healthy. The real answer, it's not one or the other. Here's the truth. Both salt and sugar can raise your blood pressure, just in different ways. Salt is the fast-acting agent that hits hard for sensitive individuals. Sugar is the stealthy chronic attacker that disrupts your metabolic health over time. If your goal is long-term blood pressure control, you can't ignore either. Your action plan, check labels. Look for both sodium and sugar content. Cook more meals at home where you control ingredients. Drink water, ditch sodas, sweet teas, and energy drinks. Season with herbs, spices, and acids instead of relying on salt. Satisfy your sweet tooth naturally with fruit, cinnamon, and vanilla. Limit processed foods where both salt and sugar sneak in. Track your BP weekly and watch how these changes pay off. You don't need to live in fear of every grain of salt or gram of sugar. But in today's processed food culture, these ingredients have gone from enhancers to health hazards. Balance, awareness, and real food choices are the way forward. If you want to protect your heart, your brain, and your future, start reducing both. Not with deprivation, but with smart, simple upgrades that are sustainable. If you found this helpful, don't forget to like, comment, and share this video with someone who still thinks it's just a little sugar. Your health journey begins with knowledge, and now you've got the edge.